Late evening was falling on Cape Cross Bay on the coast of Namibia. Two men, Alexei Voronin and Sergei Kovalev, were walking barefoot on the wet sand, enjoying the salty breeze blowing in from the Atlantic Ocean. Alexei, an experienced guide in the Namib Desert, often came here after long excursions to take a break from the scorching sun and hustle and bustle. His best friend Sergei, a photographer specializing in wildlife photography, always carried his camera with him, hoping to capture a rare moment. They chatted and laughed as the setting sun reflected off the foam of the waves gently rolling onto the shore. Suddenly, Alexei stopped, his gaze fixed on a dark silhouette lying at the water's edge. "Sergei, look," he exclaimed, pointing to the massive object half hidden by the waves. They hurried closer and froze in amazement. Before them lay an adult lion, motionless, with a wet, matted mane. Its body was covered with sand, and debris from a wooden structure, resembling the remains of a boat, lay scattered around it. Sergei carefully knelt down, placed his hand on the lion's side, and felt a faint warmth. "He's alive, but barely breathing," he said, looking at Alexei. Their eyes met, full of anxiety and confusion. How did this predator end up here, on a deserted shore? Without wasting any time, Alexei took out his phone and dialed the local rescue service. He described the situation in detail, mentioning that the lion had probably ended up here after a shipwreck. On the other end of the line, the officer sighed heavily. "For the past few months we've been tracking a gang of poachers who transport animals by sea. It looks like this lion is their victim." The officer asked the men to drag the lion away from the water so that it would not be swept away by the tide, and promised that a rescue team was already on its way. Alexei nodded to Sergei, and they set to work. Sergei grabbed the lion by the tail, while Alexei picked it up by its front paw. The carcass was incredibly heavy, its wet fur sticking to their hands, and the sand made it difficult to move. The wind was picking up, the waves were getting higher, and salt water sprayed their face. Alexei slipped on the wet sand, barely managing to keep his balance so as not to drop the lion's head on the sharp rocks. Sergei gritted his teeth and pulled with all his might, sweat mixing with seawater and running down his face. The lion did not move. His breathing was barely noticeable. His eyes were closed and his huge paws slid limply across the sand. After an exhausting struggle, they finally dragged the lion onto dry sand, about 15 meters from the water's edge. Both collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily, their eyes fixed on the dying animal. "We did what we could," Alexei said quietly, patting Sergei on the shoulder. In the distance they heard the hum of an engine. The rescue team was approaching. The men stood up, waving their arms to indicate their exact location. Four people arrived at the scene: 2 rangers, a police officer, and a veterinarian named Layla. One of the rangers, Isaac, crouched down next to the lion, checked its pulse and frowned. "It's alive, but very weak. We need to take it to the center immediately," he said. Alexei and Sergei told how they found the lion and how they dragged him ashore. The police officer, writing down their words in a notebook, nodded. "You acted heroically. This lion is most likely a victim of smugglers. Your actions saved his life." Without anesthesia, as the lion was almost unconscious, the team carefully laid him on a stretcher. One ranger supported his head. Another watched his paws so as not to damage his internal organs. Alexei helped hold the hind legs, his gaze fixed on the lion's weak breathing. Sergei cleared the way, removing rocks and debris so that the stretcher could move smoothly. The lion was loaded into a pickup truck equipped for emergency animal transport, and the vehicle sped to the Namib Wild Rescue Center. A team of veterinarians was already waiting at the center. The lion was immediately taken to intensive care, where he was hooked up to an IV. His heartbeat was checked, and he was given oxygen. A nurse carefully wiped the sand and salt from his fur to prevent skin irritation. The veterinarian, Amina, examined the lion and stated, "He is in a second-degree coma. He needs at least 12 hours of intensive observation." The team administered saline solution, medications to stabilize his blood pressure, and anti-inflammatory drugs. After an hour, the lion's blood oxygen level began to rise, and his chest rose a little more confidently. At one point, the lion opened his eyes for the first time, his gaze cloudy but alive. The nurse gently stroked his head, whispering, "You can do it, hang in there." His body temperature stabilized, the tremors stopped, and his breathing became more even. The heart rate monitor showed a steady pulse, and the signs of respiratory failure disappeared. Amina ordered the lion to be transferred to a special controlled environment ward, where he continued to receive nutrition through a feeding tube and IV. Every 2 hours, veterinarians checked his condition: pulse, blood pressure, fluid level. After 12 hours of intense work, the lion suddenly raised himself and let out a weak roar, the first sign of his return to life. The team applauded joyfully, their tired faces lit up with smiles. The next morning, the lion was transferred to a semi-wild enclosure in the center of Namib Wild. There were shady trees, sand dunes, and grass, creating conditions close to natural ones. The lion was named Atlas, in honor of the mighty ocean he had survived. A few days later, Alexei and Sergei came to visit him. Through the secure metal fence, they saw Atlas slowly but confidently pacing around the enclosure. His mane, still slightly tangled, swayed in the wind, and his eyes sparkled with new strength. "He recognized us," Alexei joked, pointing to the lion, who seemed to be looking directly at them. Sergei smiled, raising his hand in a light greeting, his gaze full of pride. The police continued their investigation, examining the microchip found on Atlas's skin. International animal welfare organizations joined the case, trying to find out where the lion had been stolen from. They hoped that in time he would be able to return to his native environment. Atlas was given a special diet and trained daily to regain his strength. Surveillance cameras recorded his behavior, and the center's staff noted how he was moving more confidently around the enclosure. Alexei and Sergei became frequent visitors to Namib Wild, and their bond with Atlas grew stronger with each visit. The lion, once on the brink of death, became a symbol of their courage and hope. Their story spread throughout local communities, inspiring people to protect wildlife. Atlas survived, becoming living proof that even in the most desperate situations, compassion and determination can work wonders. This story is about courage, friendship, and the unbreakable bond between humans and nature. Alexei and Sergei, without expecting it, became heroes whose actions saved the life of a majestic predator. Their deed will forever remain in the hearts of those who believe in the power of goodness and caring for the living world. Friends, thank you for taking the time to read this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel to support us. See you in the next stories about wildlife.